In Kansas, a mother's deadly decision on the road led to a catastrophic crash that claimed the lives of 3 Girl Scouts. Amber Pryor, a 35-year-old Kansas mother convicted in August 2023 for a crash that killed 3 Girl Scouts, is deflecting blame onto the truck driver, the justice system, and her own vehicle through revealing jailhouse calls. But can these claims of a rigged case and an accidental crash alter the course of justice? To unravel the complexities, I will be consulting with a personal injury attorney. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The case centers around Amber Pryor, a Kansas mother convicted of causing a crash that killed 3 Girl Scouts, including her own daughter. Now she appears to be denying responsibility for the tragedy. The tragedy unfolded on October 8, 2022. Pryor was driving her van, carrying 5 young girls, all en route to a Girl Scouts event. They followed 2 other cars traveling along Interstate 335 in Topeka, a stretch known for its dangerous road conditions. The convoy took a wrong turn at the South Topeka interchange, where the southbound lanes of the Kansas Turnpike offered no legal off-ramps or turnaround points for nearly 30 miles. With no lawful options, the drivers resorted to illegal U-turns through a gap in the barrier wall. The first 2 vehicles managed to complete the maneuver safely, but Amber Pryor's van was not so fortunate. Her vehicle collided head-on with a semi-truck. Inside her van, 3 young girls lost their lives. Pryor's 8-year-old daughter, Brooklyn, along with 9-year-olds Layla Azri and Kylie Lynn. Another child in the vehicle survived but suffered injuries. Before delving into the criminal charges, the victims' families reached a confidential civil settlement in April of this year. The agreement involved Pryor, the other drivers, and the Girl Scouts of Northeast Kansas and Northwest Missouri. Although Amber Pryor agreed to this settlement, her attorney maintains she denied any negligence connected to the crash. But the criminal case would soon follow. On August 15th, the date marking the 11th birthday of victim Kylie Lynn, Pryor stood trial. The jury convicted her of involuntary manslaughter, aggravated battery, and 2 traffic violations after a contentious proceeding. She had rejected a plea deal that would have lessened some charges. Hours after the verdict, Pryor began shifting blame onto others, as revealed by recorded jailhouse calls that expose her attempts to deflect responsibility. To help unpack this complex case, I've invited personal injury attorney Alia Roberts to join me here on set. Alia Roberts brings her expertise to analyze the legal and emotional layers of this tragedy. Our conversation begins with her initial impressions of the case. She notes that such incidents likely occur more often than we realize, focusing first on the legal concept of reasonableness. Pryor's defense might argue that since the first 2 vehicles succeeded, she believed she could too. But Roberts counters that those vehicles likely did not carry 5 young girls, which demands a higher standard of care. A reasonable person, she explains, would drive cautiously when responsible not just for their own children, but for others as well. Even if running late, safety should take precedence. Though the road offered no legal U-turns for an extended stretch, a prudent driver might have chosen to drive the extra miles rather than risk the dangerous maneuver. Breaking it down further, Roberts describes how Pryor's actions amounted to recklessness, knowingly disregarding a substantial risk of harm. Still, she acknowledges that Pryor was not the first to attempt the illegal U-turn, as the 2 preceding drivers had done the same. This raises questions about legal precedent in such cases. Roberts confirms that while illegal, making such U-turns is common, but the key issue is whether Pryor should be held to the same standard. She believes the verdict is justified, emphasizing that reasonableness must be judged within the circumstances. Pryor argued the truck should have seen her, yet she should have seen it first. If attempting an illegal U-turn, a driver must be fully aware of oncoming traffic. Pryor seemed to gamble on the truck slowing down, a miscalculation with tragic consequences. The collision resulted in the deaths of children inside Pryor's van. Had the maneuver been safe, the crash would never have occurred. Roberts concedes that the situation left Pryor with limited options, but insists this does not excuse a gross deviation from the standard of care expected. She explains that gross deviation is the legal term for reckless disregard, and the case hinges on whether Pryor's conduct crossed that line. While others had made similar illegal U-turns, the fatal outcome here makes this case especially severe and subject to prosecution. Roberts highlights that every fatal motor vehicle accident carries unique factors. The loss of young lives tugs at the heartstrings, adding weight to legal proceedings. Regarding driving violations, she clarifies that illegal U-turns alone do not always constitute gross deviations. Yet, drivers must exercise greater caution in hazardous situations. Ultimately, Roberts suggests the case is complex and context-driven. Not all illegal U-turns lead to prosecution, but when tragedy strikes, accountability becomes paramount. The difficult question remains: was this incident a clear breach of reasonable care, or a heartbreaking accident born of limited choices? The legal system's determination will shape the legacy of this tragedy. The victims were young girls with their futures ahead, heading to a Girl Scouts event. The loss reverberates far beyond the road where the crash occurred. In the end, the case challenges us to consider the weight of responsibility when lives hang in the balance, and how the law navigates the fine line between accident and recklessness. Had she taken just a few extra seconds to wait for the truck to pass, the tragic collision might have been avoided. The choice to merge without patience set the stage for disaster. We've all witnessed such reckless decisions. Drivers trapped in traffic, desperate enough to bypass barricades and risk everything. In places like New Jersey highways entering New York City, barricades stand firm, yet drivers dangerously skirt around them to make illegal U-turns. The crucial lesson is clear. Waiting for safe traffic conditions is the difference between life and death. Safety demands maintaining at least a car-length gap, 2 car lengths if speeds are high, between your vehicle and oncoming traffic before merging. This margin is vital to avoid collisions that can shatter lives instantly. Yet, instead of pulling over to the shoulder and waiting, she chose to merge directly from the right lane. This critical misjudgment caused the fatal crash. The debate over her intentions misses the point. The error itself cannot justify the outcome. Even if she believed the semi-truck was tailing her, or doubted her ability to turn safely, such mistakes hold no legal defense. The law demands reasonableness, and her actions fell far short. Examining the aftermath, the impact on her car was concentrated on the passenger side. The side struck during the attempted merge. The tractor-trailer showed no visible damage, underscoring the abruptness of the collision. This evidence confirms she tried to merge without sufficient time or space. The damage pattern reveals a desperate, ill-timed maneuver that sealed the fate of those involved. Turning to the civil settlement, this case carries an immense emotional weight, involving the loss of young lives. Wrongful death negotiations are delicate, balancing grief with the harsh calculus of law. Negotiators strive to reach settlements, mindful that trials carry unpredictable risks. Each case differs, but the goal remains to find resolution without prolonging pain. When children are the victims, the stakes deepen. Evaluators look beyond the immediate tragedy, assessing what these young lives might have achieved. Surprisingly, factors like school grades enter the equation. How well were these children performing academically? Were they on paths to college? Such details shape the valuation of their lost futures. The damages reflect not just years lost, but potential unfulfilled. Though only 11, these children could have had bright futures ahead. Careers, education, achievements. They might have excelled in sports, been on track for scholarships, or simply thrived in school. Each detail builds a case for the life they might have led. Considering parental backgrounds and the children's prospects, experts weigh their potential to succeed and support family in the years ahead. These calculations extend far beyond childhood, projecting the economic and emotional impact into adulthood. The loss ripples through time, touching every aspect of life that was stolen. Life damages experts, or economic analysts, step in to quantify this loss. They evaluate life expectancy and potential earnings, crafting an evidence-based estimate of damages. By examining grades, activities, and talents, these experts argue the likelihood of accomplishments. A child with soccer skills might have earned a scholarship, opening doors to higher education. Such tangible possibilities strengthen claims, as long as evidence supports these projections. Each child's future is carefully reconstructed in this legal process. When assessing settlements, the court weighs the full scope of the children's potential lives, including their ability to care for aging parents in the future. This consideration extends the damages claim, recognizing that the parents have lost not only children but also future caretakers. A fair settlement demands a substantive, evidence-based figure. It cannot be arbitrary, nor can lives be ranked by dollar value without careful analysis. Confidentiality in these settlements is crucial, especially when public entities like the Girl Scouts are involved. This secrecy protects against setting legal precedents that could influence future cases. If a similar tragedy occurred elsewhere, prior settlements might be referenced to push for similar payouts. Keeping agreements confidential prevents such comparisons. Without public settlement figures, each case must be evaluated independently, starting from scratch in court or negotiations. Moving from civil matters to criminal proceedings, a pivotal moment arose with a plea deal that Amber Pryor reportedly rejected. Prosecutors offered to drop one count of involuntary manslaughter if she pled guilty to the remaining two. Yet she declined, a decision she later regretted. This refusal suggests she understood incarceration was inevitable, but perhaps held on to hope of acquittal. True remorse requires admitting fault, beyond superficial gestures like social media posts mourning her own loss. Pryor refused to fully accept responsibility, shifting blame to the truck driver and accusing other parents of pushing the lawsuit, undermining the legal process that demands accountability. Despite public expressions of sorrow, genuine remorse must come with ownership of wrong actions, acknowledging that waiting for traffic could have prevented this tragedy. Instead, her narrative shifted blame outward, a stance that did little to sway judgment. Perhaps she believed she could beat the charges, but the weight of lost lives made this gamble profoundly serious. In the end, this was a reckless risk with irreversible consequences. Children's lives forever lost due to a moment's impatience. Amber Pryor referred to a series of jail calls as a look, describing them as moments when she felt God wanted to sit her down. Unfortunately, the audio of those calls is not available. These calls were made from jail after her conviction. In them, Pryor repeatedly deflected blame, refusing to accept responsibility as the weight of the verdict settled upon her. Her frustration with the judicial system was palpable. She shockingly claimed the trial was rigged, even suggesting that jurors had been paid off. In one call, she blamed 70-year-old truck driver Robert Russell, insisting he should have seen her turn signal and braked. She described the collision as a mysterious impact, likening it to a bomb going off. Pryor also shifted fault to the poor condition of her van. Yet her blame did not stop there. Local reports revealed she accused the parents of the other two girls of perjury. Attorney Alia Roberts, seasoned in cases like this, recognized that such recorded calls carry weight. She was asked how these revelations might influence Pryor's sentencing. Roberts explained the impact would be significant. Typically, those responsible for deaths express sorrow and disbelief. Instead, Pryor's calls presented a narrative of deflection, denying accountability. She did not admit fault. Roberts noted that even if Pryor did not accept full responsibility, she could have at least acknowledged her role as the driver involved in the fatal accident. Yet, no such remorse surfaced in the jail calls. The blame was consistently cast on others, a tone unlikely to sway a judge toward leniency. Pryor also complained that the investigation unfairly targeted her, lamenting that everything was directed solely at her. Having concluded her case, she maintained arguments that absolved her: faulty vehicle, driver error, or flawed investigation, all standard defenses her legal team raised. These legal strategies are common in criminal trials. Pryor likely intended to appeal, standing firm on the claims that led to her conviction. The question arose: why was her refusal to accept guilt so damaging? While accusing the parents of perjury is severe, most of her claims were standard defense tactics. Roberts argued the issue was one of optics. A reasonable jury expects remorse, not finger-pointing. Pryor's calls lacked any expression of disbelief or sorrow that might soften perceptions. The tragic loss of 3 young girls weighed heavily against Pryor, especially as she blamed the parents, those who had entrusted her to deliver their children safely to a Girl Scouts event. Accountability was the core concern. The parents bore their own grief, but Pryor's denial struck a harsh chord. Sentencing loomed with a wide range, from a minimum of 2.5 years to a maximum of 13 years. Pryor's refusal to show remorse risked pushing the sentence toward the harsher end. If she continued blaming others and reiterated her defenses without apology, the judge would see no regret, no acceptance of guilt, and that would weigh heavily in deciding her fate. In one call, she clung to a distinction, insisting she did not kill 3 children but was merely involved in a car accident. While legally this might be classified as an accident, the distinction was semantic. There was no claim she intended harm, but negligence and recklessness still held her accountable. The law draws a line between intentional acts and failure to act as a reasonable person would. Negligence in this case meant she could be held responsible for the tragic deaths, even without intent. Motor vehicle accidents happen suddenly and often, yet 3 young lives were lost, a fact that underscored the gravity of her actions. Pryor seemed to underestimate this, failing to grasp the weight of admitting responsibility for 3 deaths, even if unintentional. The legal distinction between negligence and intentional crimes mattered, but it did not absolve her from fault or the tragic consequences. The difference lay in intent versus recklessness, the failure to act as any reasonable person should in a split-second decision. Accidents on the road happen in an instant. One moment of inattention can change everything. This reality weighed heavily in the case, underscoring the irreversible loss of 3 innocent girls. In another call, Pryor appeared to trivialize her situation, describing jail as a mere vacation at a 2-star hotel, confident she would avoid prison, claiming Kansas preferred to keep families together. Her defense team pushed for no prison time, favoring rehabilitation. Yet the severity of the charges painted a different picture. If sentenced to the maximum, consecutive prison terms could mean Pryor faced more than a decade behind bars. Attorney Roberts acknowledged that without prior criminal history, this might influence sentencing. But the gravity of the case and Pryor's attitude complicated the path ahead. The debate over removing Amber Pryor from her children was a central concern. Mental health issues were cited, raising questions about the children's welfare. Yet, the system offers mental health treatment within prison walls, including therapy and psychiatric care, all funded by the state. It became clear that claiming mental incapacity as a shield against incarceration was unfounded. The justice system regularly houses individuals with mental health conditions. Prisons provide support structures, therapists, group sessions, and psychiatrists. The argument that Pryor should avoid jail despite taking her children's lives lacks merit. While acknowledging possible mitigating factors, responsibility could not be entirely denied. The victims' families demanded a firm prison sentence. Kylie Lynn's mother, Tiffany Lynn, publicly mourned her daughter on Facebook, revealing the deep bond between Kylie and Layla Azri, the other victim. In her post, Tiffany described Layla as her everything, expressing a heart shattered beyond repair and an overwhelming sense of loss. She called Layla her purpose, confessing she felt lost without her. Meanwhile, a GoFundMe page was established to ease Layla's family's funeral expenses. The page mourned Layla's untimely passing, marking what was meant to be a day of joy turned to tragedy. Tiffany also shared her anguish over losing Brooklyn, her own daughter, admitting uncertainty about how she would continue but pledging to live for her memory. Such raw grief posed a challenge for the judge, who must weigh the trauma of a mother losing her child against the demands of justice from the victims' families. The sentencing decision hovered in a gray area, caught between compassion and accountability, a difficult balance to strike. Some argued Amber Pryor should not face the maximum sentence, considering her own loss and the complex nature of grief. Grief manifests differently. For some, it hides behind laughter, a fragile mask concealing profound pain. This could explain seemingly incongruent behaviors, as Pryor might be laughing off her sorrow in an attempt to cope. Yet justice must be served. Law teaches us justice is multifaceted and varies for each party involved. For Amber Pryor, justice might mean treatment in a mental health facility. For the parents, it demands accountability, a punishment fitting the irreversible loss. Victims' families pressed the prosecution relentlessly, refusing to accept a sentence that felt like impunity. Amber Pryor remained in custody, awaiting her sentencing continuation set for December 3rd, when Judge Jessica Hyman would determine her fate. We explored possible outcomes with attorney Alia Roberts, whose insights shed light on this complex case. As the story paused, the host, Jesse Weber, thanked Roberts and reminded viewers to subscribe for updates on this and other cases. With that, Jesse promised to return with more truths uncovered in future episodes.